Blessings, good evening. Today we have a few questions to answer. The first being, I can see dukkha directly in the form of physical discomfort and mental agitation. I can also contemplate anicca, regardless of the current state or the conditions that have given rise to it. Everything is impermanent. However, I find anatta much harder to see directly. It is this body and these particular parts of the body that are experiencing the pain, so there is still a strong identification with the pain as mine. Although I can understand the concept of non-self theoretically, every feeling and sensation I experience seems to arise from biological processes rooted in this very body. Can you advise? Well, welcome to the real world, the world of the five khandhas, which is what we've got, every one of us. And these five khandhas are subject to change, they're subject to dukkha, because things change, they don't stay still or in a sort of perfect form. They're always degenerating, aging, influencing each other, and so on. And so we have physical and mental pain. Like you say, it's anicca, impermanence, is probably the easier of the three universal characteristics of existence to see or notice. Like you say, everything is changing, everything is impermanent, and so wherever you look you can see it quite quickly when you look. Part of our problem is we're deluded half the time, or even more than half the time, and so we don't look, or we look but not correctly. So a lot of our practice of developing mindfulness and then insight is directing this mind to look more closely at the nature of phenomena, particularly the five khandhas, physical form, and then the mental khandhas, the mind and the contents of the mind. We're training the mind to look clearly from a place of stillness, detached awareness, because the stronger and more continuous the mindfulness, the more clarity there'll be, the more apparent the anicca laksana or characteristic becomes. And the same for the other two. But it takes a lot of practice, as we know. You apply your mind to anything, whether the mind knowing the mind, or the mind knowing feeling, vedana, or the mind knowing the body. We do it and maybe get a little bit of clarity, and observation gives a little rise to a little bit of insight. Then we lose it. We're back with the deluded mind and identifying with everything as, like you say, me, mine, myself. And so we identify with pleasure and want that, want to keep it. And we identify with pain as self and want to get rid of it. So our mind is never very still until we re-establish mindfulness and then practice contemplation to give rise to insight. Everything takes practice. Doesn't just happen just like that. We all want the quick solution. We want instant enlightenment, instant insight. We want our mind to calm down and settle down quickly. We want to be mindful, perfectly mindful all the time. We want all of this, but it takes practice. Maybe a lifetime, maybe many lifetimes. So, if you are comfortable accepting some of the sort of comments from the suttas or the commentaries, the Buddha, before he became enlightened, he was building Bharami, practicing, including observing anicca, dukkha, anatta, these three characteristics, for 4 asankayas and 100,000 kalpas. A long, long time. So we need patience. We need to set aside the mind that's sort of, when will I have got beyond my dukkha and my pain and my problems, and just keep coming back to cultivating the good causes, the mindfulness, the wise reflection, the contemplation. But like you say, anatta is hard to see, the no-self characteristic, because we're so used to seeing everything as self, identifying, grasping with every thought, every idea, every view, every feeling and every bit of the body as self. So we have to practice. And I always found sort of the approach of the forest monks is to work with what is obvious first. So, number one, we need to keep bringing up the mindfulness, bringing attention to the present moment. So using meditation methods such as reciting Buddha or chanting or following the feeling of the in and out breath or any of the other meditation techniques we can use. We use them to develop this stronger mindfulness, and then we observe. But you can observe yourself and what's going on any time. It's just sometimes you're more mindful than others. And as you practice this, then you can start to see at least the obvious aspects of the non-self characteristics, such as this morning I clipped my nails. Those nails were on my fingertips for a while, and then I said, oh, my nails are long, they need clipping. So you have that automatic sense, these are mine, my responsibility, my concern, myself, my nails. You might say not a big attachment, not a big display of self, but it's still there. And then you cut, the nail goes off, and you just throw it away and you have no more concern for it. Because it's not self, it's not you. If you establish mindfulness through that whole process, cutting them off and throwing them away, you really have a good insight into not self, not to be clung to as self. While they're on the body, then we think a lot about them, maybe, depending on your character. Maybe you're very into shaping, cleaning, styling your nails. Like the other day we were planting and someone came up to me. They were doing this gardening job, planting things, and all their nails were dirty because of earth. So, dirty nails, like that. Most people don't want dirty nails, so when you finish your work, you wash them because you want clean nails. Part of that is self, isn't it? Wanting clean nails, wanting a certain idea, a certain way for yourself, and how your nails are is part of yourself, self-identity. So you start with these small little things, external parts of the body, hair, nails, food, urine, excrement. The things we see are impermanent suffering, not self. And just ask yourself questions and think about it. You become more familiar with these themes because they're universal characteristics. And sometimes your mind just has to accept, this body is really, I don't own it. It's a collection of natural processes influencing each other, and I can, my mind can make a decision which influences the body, but we can't absolutely control it because it doesn't belong to us, it's not self. It doesn't just exist in nature, in the sense the body isn't just always there all the time, it comes together. Why does this body start in the first place? Because you have an embryo which is fertilized, you have an egg, it's fertilized by the sperm, and then a consciousness, which is the hard part, the mental part of a person is hard to see, hard to know, but this is the part that joins the fertilized egg and becomes an embryo, becomes a baby. Once you've got a baby, baby keeps growing through food and water and environment and love and everything. Baby keeps growing into child, adult, middle age, old age, and then it dies. Take a step back, like Luang Por Chah said, every time a baby is born, everyone's excited and congratulating and happy as you would, but nobody is thinking of the fact one day this baby will die. That's the innate truth, because the body is not self and we can't stop it getting old, getting sick and dying. So we're born into the world, and then we have to take on all the things of the world because we got a body. And we want birth. What fires up birth is craving and attachment accumulated from the past life. So we want to be born. But what we forget or try not to think about is you're born, it's not just pleasure and success and happiness and the good things that we want to identify with. We also get painful things, physical things, mental things. And that starts to happen, and so we cry and we complain and we despair and cry and get upset, shout and beat our chest and complain to our friend and all kinds of stuff as we go through life, because part of life is painful. Some people more than others, depending on karma. And all of this is what we say conditioned stuff. Really, it's just arising because we were born, then you get lots of other problems that start coming on from that. There's nothing much you can do. You do your best to manage your pleasure and pain and your experience of life, but ultimately this body is just getting older and then heading to death. So why do we have to deal with aging, sickness and death? Because we were born. Why do I have painful knees? Because I was born. Why do some people not like me? Because I was born. If you weren't born, you wouldn't have these problems. Once you're born, you have these 5 khandhas, but they're conditioned things according to karma, and that's another thing to study, isn't it? Ultimately, we're making karma to go to the point where we stop making karma, so we're not going to be born again and not have to deal with suffering and pain again. But until that point, we're making karma, the karma of the Noble Eightfold Path, maybe, cultivating that. Cultivate good karma and doing our best to avoid making bad karma, which will prolong the agony. That's another way of reminding yourself, if you're tempted to make bad karma, it's only going to make the whole problem last longer, because it's creating the causes for more suffering and more birth and more suffering again. So like cycles of birth and suffering. So if you can see that, you stop making bad karma, you only make good karma, but ultimately making karma for the ending of karma. You can say, where is all the self in that? Well, the self is an idea. I am the one who makes karma. I am making good karma, making bad karma. I have this body, I do things. Okay. It's a superficial description of what's going on. There's this person who makes karma. But ultimately, even karma can be broken down into cause and effect. And it's impersonal. There's no God or superior being in control of karma, kind of making things happen that we can blame when things go wrong, Why is someone punishing me like this? And that kind of thing. It's cause and effect. Where you can see not self, maybe first of all, other than in your body and your nails and hair and things, you start to see it in karma. The process of cause and effect, how the choices you make and the results that come. The thoughts you hold on to and give importance to, the intentions you have, the actions, the speech you do is karma, but it's conditioned. So you have to see through that sense of self that just says, my karma, I am doing this, I'm doing that all the time. You just take it for granted maybe, but actually these are conditions having an impact from moment to moment on each other. You notice a lot of that when you practice mindfulness. You start to notice the impermanence, the suffering, but also the not-self of the mind, how there may be an impulse to speak out in anger when you're upset, or complain when you're sort of frustrated. So you see the mental impulse first, the thought, the feeling, the emotion. You see that as you're practicing mindfulness, you reflect back, notice that. But then if you're mindful enough, you say, this only is reinforcing a sense of self, identity with negativity, negative emotions, negative views. So that you might decide, I'm not going to speak out or do anything or say anything, I'll just watch that particular mental state of craving arise and then just allow it to pass away without much fuss. If you can do that, you can see, it's not self, because if it was a self, it would be there and it'd be kind of part of you all the time. But it's not. It comes and goes according to causes and conditions. And if you keep applying magga, the path, to things like that, all the negative emotions, the desires rooted in greed and lust, the desires rooted in aversion, gradually you're seeing not self. These desires are not you. You can abandon them, you can let them go, you can change. And you've already done that and probably had some insight into not self, and you can deepen that through deepening your practice. We've all let go of things in the past, bad habits, moods that we were in, we just let it go, we didn't act on it, didn't hold on to it. You're angry with someone, you forgive, you let go, you move on, you have some big ambition, some desire, but you decide, I'm not going to act on it if it's causing you suffering. Maybe you decide this, I'll just let it pass. Doesn't mean to say you can't have desires or do things, but just recognizing the impermanent nature of them, and therefore the fact that they are not a self. Because a self implies something that exists, it's always there. But these are conditions that come up, and you can observe how they come up, what triggers them. And it's endless, isn't it? It's fun in a way. You can kind of contemplate your own experience to see not self at work. What triggers me? And we say me, we say what triggers me, but really these triggers, you take the triggers away, you're not triggered. So that self that is triggered by the words of someone you don't like, who says those words and you feel emotion and you get upset or angry, if that person's not around, you don't hear those words, you're not triggered, so it doesn't happen. That's not self in one way of looking at it. So there's the physical side of not self, the mental side of not self. And of course, on the higher levels of Dhamma, still not self. You attain deep blissful states of samadhi, which are good and important, but they're not self either. And that's one of the delusions or subtle delusions we have to contemplate as well. They're not permanent, they're not a self. They're still sankharas, a condition of mind that we practice and train, and it's a very refined, superior state of mind, which is good and is very helpful for developing insight, but we have to go on and develop insight. Otherwise we're just attached to blissful state of samadhi alone, want that, want to hold on to it, get annoyed when we've lost it maybe, and we're not progressing further to see the attachment that forms around it maybe. So once you get into looking at not self in your experience, it's a perception of not self. You can question your experience, you're bringing up that perception to challenge other perceptions of self, maybe. So there's a lot of questioning, investigation, observation, both of coarse things, coarse physical things, coarse mental states and feelings, and then subtle things as well. It doesn't really change as far as I understand all the way to Nibbana. You're investigating self and the attachment to self and the idea of self and how it causes suffering all the way to Nibbana. It's only Nibbana is totally free from the idea of self, selfishness, as Luang Por Buddhadasa used to say. One who reaches Nibbana has no more sense of self, so there's no more selfishness, no more anger, no more greed. So there's plenty to do. Could even say it's kind of interesting. Be curious about what is self, what do I take as self, learn about it. Dear Ajahn, I hope this message finds you in good health and peace. I am writing to humbly seek your practical guidance on a few questions regarding my work and my daily practice. Working with dementia residents, how can I skillfully handle residents who are persistently negative before taking their medication, or those who remain unsettled even after multiple attempts at redirection? Karma and the mind. How does dementia, along with the mind-altering effects of strong medications, impact a person's consciousness and their future rebirth, life after death? So that's the first question. Well, I'm not a doctor or expert on dementia, but some basic reflections dealing with dementia patients, like other kinds of patients, you're going to need to be patient yourself. This word patience is actually used, isn't it, in the industry, and it's a very useful word. We have to be patient with other people and their problems, their sufferings, their mental or physical degeneration. And of course, people who have dementia, different symptoms, forgetfulness, inability to control themselves and their emotions and whatever, how it presents. I'm not an expert, but we all have an idea what we think dementia is. I'm sure they are very difficult to handle on occasions. People are confused, emotional, unable to restrain themselves, forgetful, making mistakes, moody, aggressive, unfortunately. These things will come up, won't they? Maybe every day. So if you're working with them, you've got to be very patient and prepared for that. You know what it's like. You've worked in that industry, that area before, so you know what to expect. And I'm sure they do often refuse medication. One thing is to look back at yourself. Have you ever refused or not been happy taking medication that you wanted to take or had to take or were asked to take? You probably had it as well. People get fed up taking pills and all of that. It kind of, on so many levels, it can be frustrating. There's the practical side. If they're forgetful, they just forget it maybe. But even on the level of just the idea of it, often people are fed up taking medication. They just want to be kind of free of their condition, and so being free of the medication is I guess, a sense of being free from the medical condition, although it's not, but they might feel like that. So you just have to do your best, don't you? You do your best out of compassion to, if you know it's good for them from what you've been instructed from the doctor or whoever, you do your best to help them to take the medication, but at the same time control your own emotions, or your own frustration, irritation as you're dealing with them. So not easy, but I imagine if you do it every day, you get better at doing that. You learn how to control yourself and how to deal with it. So a bit of humor always seems to help. Smile and relax and do your best. And always remember, this person is ill. They've got dementia, so they're not going to act like other people and be normal. And sometimes they're better than others, I imagine. Some days they're better than others. And you do your best. But if you ground yourself in kindness, compassion, the Brahmaviharas, you've got many qualities there, good qualities to help you deal with how they present themselves, how they are day by day, and the unpredictabilities. And I guess you have to keep reflecting on it, because you've got to keep your wits about you. If people are behaving unpredictably, you've got to look after yourself in that situation as you're dealing with it. But keep coming back to metta, karuna, kindness and compassion. And strong medications, yeah, they alter your mind. They, ideally we don't want them, we don't need them, so that we can keep our mind alert. But then if someone is very ill, such as dementia and similar things, then nowadays that's the policy, maybe, to give them various strong medications to calm them down, basically to put them in a kind of stupor. And that's the sad part, it just makes them blurry. That's how it affects consciousness. If their mindfulness is not strong, then they just succumb to the effects of the medication and they become blurry, drugged, and they're not mindful. But then if they've got dementia or something, they're probably not very mindful anyway. But their mind is not in the best state, of course, under these medications. So, how will it affect their rebirth? Well, this is karma that they've ended their life maybe with these kind of illnesses. The treatments can be quite extreme, like a lot of medication, sedatives, morphines and things, whatever, depending on what the prescriptions are and the situation. That's part of the karma, isn't it? That they're ending their life in that state. But that person, maybe there's a whole other story to their life, earlier in their life, and they may have done many good things, which will support them later. But they have to get through the karma of their own illness, and it may only end when they die. Unfortunately, it can be like that. Often these illnesses are degenerative, they're not going to recover from them. So the ending of it is when they die. And so your hope is, well, once they die, pass on, they'll be free from the body, and the body is where that illness is coming up, where that karma is having a lot of effect. So maybe then their mind is freer to go on and receive the fruits of past good karma they made before they were ill. So our job maybe is just to give them lots of support through their illness, try to help protect them from themselves and from accidents and mishaps, and just kind of support them through it. And then when they pass on, the hope is, well, in the future they're free from that kind of karma. My meditation practice, I sit daily for 45 to 75 minutes, practicing the Brahmaviharas. Very good. Due to physical and mental fatigue, my energy often drops after 30 minutes and I fall asleep. Very common. Though I remain sitting. In the past, I experienced profound phenomena of metta and karuna, but I have been unable to bring those states back. How should I navigate this fatigue and to let go of trying to recreate past meditation experiences? Thank you for your time and wisdom. With respect. You're experiencing what many meditators experience, is that one, maybe through aging, work, the burdens of work and life, as we go through life, maybe the challenges of an aging body make it a little bit harder to sustain blissful state, strong samadhi, strong mindfulness, and so things like sleepiness maybe come up more for some people. Not necessarily. If you train, then you can always get through sleepiness, but it does take training and practice. So maybe look into ways to deal with sleepiness. So if you can sit for 30 minutes and then start to struggle with sleepiness, maybe that's a sign to move on to doing some walking meditation, or chanting, or changing the object, focusing on a light, reciting something, some Dhamma. If it's a pattern of continuous pattern, you've seen it happen a lot, then I would get a strategy ready. Either make a plan, I'll just sit for 30 minutes and then do walking or some other way of practicing mindfulness, or at least have the plan ready in case that happens, then I will do that. So we just have to accept those kind of things, and you might find some days when your faith is strong, effort is there, body feels good, well, you can overcome the sleepiness, and that will give you motivation and strength, to confidence to try a bit harder maybe in your practice. But like you say, part of our suffering, the suffering of the meditator, is always remembering the good meditations last year, last decade, when I first started, whatever. People love to do that and then feel sad that they can't recreate them. So it's like self-inflicted pain. It's like missing something you haven't got. It's a form of craving, isn't it? You're not happy with what you've got and you're missing or seeking something you haven't got, including things you've had in the past you want again. So you have to recognize the craving, what you're doing to yourself in that situation. Question yourself, talk to yourself, observe what's going on. And, with Luang Por Chah, always encourage just practice and accept and be happy that you're practicing, number one. And accept with whatever's coming up. If you're peaceful, great. If you're not peaceful, great. Whether you're peaceful or not peaceful, you keep practicing and develop this sense of equanimity towards conditions, even unfavorable conditions, pain in your body, a mind that is very disturbed, sleepiness, whatever. Don't create further suffering when you experience these things. Accept them for what they are, still work to establish mindfulness, but don't go to aversion and you try to get rid of things you don't like or recreate things you've liked before, enjoyed before. Spend as much time as you can working on basic mindfulness and then observe. And so the craving to recreate states of peace, states of metta and karuna from the past that may have brought you a lot of joy, true. Well, be aware of the danger of just wanting that again. Go back to your basic meditations, and if you have an affinity with the practice of Brahmaviharas, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, well, remember, upekkha is one of those 4 Brahmaviharas, and we have to cultivate that as well for the times when our mind is not very peaceful. Cultivate a sense of acceptance, just knowing, watching, and be very patient with the whole thing. But try not to go to aversion, I don't want this, don't like this, or why isn't it like it was before, how can I get it back before? Well, none of that is going to make you peaceful. It just tires you out and makes you lose interest in the practice perhaps. So you have to try and develop a very patient, equanimous kind of attitude, more detached awareness, even when we're not peaceful. Just say, oh, it's like this. Have a curiosity. How can I learn from this? Is there anything it's teaching me today? Where is it coming from? Maybe there are very obvious reasons why you're not peaceful. Again, as we get older, body is under more pressure. We get tired, we get aches and pains. So you work hard and then you come home, you're very tired. So you may be disappointed that it's not so easy to meditate like it was 10 years ago or something. That's another part of your practice, something to contemplate, something to accept and work with. Reflect on all the good things in your life, in your day, in your world. Because when you develop a lot of appreciation, gratitude, this leads on to contentment. That's a very good foundation for them putting forth effort to deal with tiredness, frustrations of life, pressures of work. When you have gratitude, you're more willing to look at things, and you're still aiming to see all these mental states as just mental states. They're just that much. They're not you, they're not self. They're impermanent, they're suffering if you attach to them. So don't attach, just observe them as impermanent, not self, and stay with the mind that knows, the awareness, more and more. Dear Luang Por, can you please advise on how an individual gets to achieve at least Sotapatti in this lifetime? I have been deluded for more than 20 years before I started practicing. I do not think the amount of merit resulting from the precepts that I'm keeping and the meditation I'm cultivating and the Dhamma talks that I've been listening to are enough to help me enter the stream. I'm running out of time and options. I do not wish to be reborn again with the possibility of practicing or not practicing, assuming that I get to become a human and not end up in the woeful realms. Well, like you say, yeah, time is running out, life is uncertain, so practice a lot, put a lot of effort in, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, one aspect of the practice is not giving up. This is what Ajahn talked about a lot. If you don't give up, then you're going to gain things from the practice, maybe even attain stream entry, if you don't give up. But we have Mara in all his forms, including Kilesa Mara, and Kanda Mara, and Sankara Mara. So, not beings as such, more just internal mental proliferation based on Kilesa, greed, anger, and delusion. Mara is always tricking us and saying, you can't do it. Like if, me or someone tells you, oh, you can't make Sotapanna, what are you going to do? You're just going to give up. So don't say that. So probably more useful to say, yes, it can be done, do it. And it's true, it can be done. How long? Who knows? How quick? Who knows? It depends on so many factors. You probably know better than anyone how much effort you're putting into your practice, how sincere you are, how carefully you look after your mind and your speech and your actions. You have to ask yourself, where is your mind? What do you value most in life? Like, probably a Sotapanna would be willing to sacrifice everything for the Dhamma. Everything, including their life. That's how Ajahn used to talk. So are you willing to sacrifice everything for the Dhamma? And that's the kind of mindset that will lead your mind to gather together all the factors of the path, to come together and for your path, your practice to progress. You have to really sacrifice for the Dhamma. And the Dhamma is timeless, so you don't have to put a time limit on this. Whether it's this life, next life, or in 100 lives, doesn't matter. You don't think like that. That's going back to the way of the world, and time frames and the sense of self. That for the next 5 years I'll be doing that, and then for another 10 years I'll be doing this, and then I've got to achieve that and attain that. That's all, self-view and the delusion of self again. The Dhamma is timeless. So whether you get enlightened today or in 100 lifetimes from now or whatever, you don't know. It doesn't matter. Keep going back to your good practice in the present moment. Respect the Dhamma, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. Listen to your teachers, reflect on their instructions. Have you completed all the instructions that your teachers have given you yet? If you haven't, it's as simple as that. Oh, there's more to do, more to practice. Dana, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, all these terms, these paramis and these ways of practice, have you put your heart into it yet? Or, most people, they sort of try a little bit and then they give up or they get distracted. So Ajahn Chah's simple teaching of don't give up and you'll attain something is very useful and very simple. So don't give up. Don't give up on the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, yourself, the people you love. Keep practicing the Dhamma and this will generate better and better things over time. But how quick and in what form, what way, well, that's for everyone to find out because everyone's karma is slightly different. Don't give up. Luang Por, I was raised from the age of 6 in a violent, fearful and hostile environment. Oh dear. I barely saw my parents due to a dysfunctional family with little love or affection. I had to survive through many difficulties as a kid, including hunger, fights and so on. As an adult, I chose an unskillful path which harmed me for years, but after encountering the Dhamma, things have changed. I am now 30 years old, but I am unable to feel love or connection with people or get close to them, always feel distant and don't know what love feels like. Never had a relationship. It feels like there is a block or a knot. I meditate every day and listening to Dhamma talks, it has changed me to be a good person, better person. I'm calmer, I'm more at ease, quieter. However, I am unable to feel metta either towards myself or others. I have been trying for a few months, but I keep feeling as though I am hitting a wall. I have always been emotionally numb, as if I am simply surviving, and nothing really affects me anymore. Well, sounds like you've had a hard life from day one, but you've also got a lot of reflective insight on your situation and what's been going on. And it doesn't sound like it's all bad, does it? Because you said you've changed for the better, to be a calmer, more peaceful person, quieter, more at ease. Those sound like good qualities that you've developed through your practice. So that's results, that's good things. And I actually think that also is a reflection that you have some metta in your heart, even if you're not recognizing it. Because if you have metta, you do tend to calm down, be more calm, more relaxed, and therefore less aggressive, less angry. So I think you have to build on whatever things you've been doing so far, or you say for the last few months. You have to build on it, keep practicing. Like I was saying for the last question, don't give up, keep doing it. So metta is both an attitude, a feeling, an object of mind, a wholesome object of mind. So yes, you have to keep working at it. And if it's difficult, go slowly, be patient with the difficulty, but I would keep at it, because this will unlock your heart and help you to come to terms with your life so far and some of the unpleasant things and traumas of the past, but help you unlock your mind, the good qualities of the mind in the present moment, by developing metta on a daily basis. In simple ways, through our speech, our actions, and then kind thoughts. So maybe as a little formal practice you might do some chanting or just reciting Dhamma like the Metta Sutta once a day. Then some meditation to calm the mind and bring up that thought for yourself and others. And even if your mind is resisting, just keep working at it. Just start with doing it for a few moments, a few minutes, and maybe develop over time. Metta often has to be like that. You just keep bringing your mind back to it little by little until it's more familiar with, your mind is more familiar with the concept and the feeling. And little by little you know how to bring it up, you know how to focus your mind on it. So it's something, like a work in progress. You keep working at it. And with that you also get the sort of, like you say, you feel more relaxed, easier to let go of the past memories or the emotions associated with those past memories, easier to forgive people who may have hurt you, meaning you acknowledge what they've done, if they've done something wrong to you or they have just caused suffering, but you're no longer holding on to the anger. You're willing to let go of your anger, any thoughts of wanting revenge or hatred, letting it go. So it's something you have to keep at, and I recommend doing it every day, if only for a few minutes and sometimes for longer. And do things that encourage this kind of quality to come up in your mind, metta, whether it's, feeding animals, doing favors for people, helping people who are less fortunate than us, different kinds of charity, volunteering, give people things, share things you've got with other people, do things that make you practice metta in a practical, obvious way. And keep at it. And obviously to practice mindfulness as well, in small ways or bigger ways, depending on your energy and your ability or your time. Cultivate mindfulness and then catch when you have the more negative thoughts, the anger, the sadness, based on memories or just karma that's you've built up. Practice mindfulness so you can be more steady and aware as different emotions come up, and rather than following them or letting them affect you so much, just noting them and letting them go. So this is what practice is. I mean, maybe you've had a bad deal compared to some people, but everyone's got some of this, and we all have to work through it. And that's what practice is. You're working through karma, changing your karma for the better by cultivating wholesome states of mind and abandoning unwholesome states of mind. And just keep going. Doing good things, particularly maybe visiting teachers or sangha or people, places where people practice the Dhamma, supporting that, getting involved with that from time to time at least. That can help, gives you a good input and can give you a boost, give you some faith. So you have to see what you can do. So those are the questions tonight.